Seems like a difficult job, but once you have it apart, it's really not that bad. Pretty short, pretty easy to do. Blower motor is just up under the dash near the center, in that hole right there. There's only one screw that holds it in. The main way to hold it in is that line around the case. It's a thread, clockwise to go in, counterclockwise to remove. I use that oil filter wrench to get a good hold of it. If you're strong, it's not a big deal, but it does get pretty tight. One electrical connector, you just can't see it. The video's partially cut off. On the right hand side of that connector is a little squeeze tab. Here's your brake and gas pedal assembly. There's 2 bolts on the right, one on the top left, one on the bottom left. They're nuts. They're actually studs, so you just put it up onto the studs. Throw the nuts on, no big deal. There's one little pin for the brake master cylinder there and a couple of electrical connectors. Not a big deal. There's that pin. Very important pin. And there's a view of where the pedal assembly goes. There's a little bracket that sits on top of it. As long as you remove that little bracket, the pedal assembly comes out easily. One connector there, 2 connectors there. There's one of the bolts. The stud with nut, sorry. And there's the bracket that goes in after the brake pedal assembly. Just 2 studs holding that guy in. The upper nut is a little tricky, but if you have an extension with a swivel socket, put a little piece of paper towel in the socket, push the nut into the socket, and then you can start the nut with the extension and the swivel rather than trying to stick your hand up in there. You can see where I feed the extension through to get that upper one. It looks difficult, but it's really not. And then the other stud is easily accessible. And then you've got this little plate to go on, 4 screws holding it on. That's the OBD2 connector. One more piece of trim. It just pops in on the right hand side. On the left hand side, there's 1 screw that holds that piece of trim in, goes right there. That hood release cable's pretty self-explanatory. A couple little squeeze tabs, disconnect that guy, no big deal. Yeah, they sure hid that blower motor well. Without disassembling, it's almost impossible to see it, but once you remove that pedal assembly, which isn't tough, it makes for a pretty easy job.